Yo, how are you doing, folks? Welcome to episode 111 for all you people that love your numerology. This is obviously a big one. It's our first repeating triple number. Many more to come, hopefully, all the way up to 999. Don't know when the hell we'll get to that episode. Who knows? I might be in my 50s by then. We'll see. I've got plenty of shit to talk. So, if you guys want to keep listening and viewing, I will keep recording this shit till I'm 50. So, yeah, here's to many more, folks. Hope you're having a wonderful week. I hope you enjoyed last week's episode with Guy Coxall. I've had quite a bit of feedback from that. Of a lot of people really found it beneficial to explore the current legislation around cannabis and driving with prescriptions and obviously those without. Do want to obviously draw people's attention as well to the outlaw episode that we previously did 18 months ago now, maybe a year or so ago. That also contains a hell of a lot of the analysis and breakdown of the current legislation here in the UK. So I just think quite a good, insightful podcast for you to check out. Actually, also while we're on it, Daryl Bickler, another really good one of an exploration into legislation and sort of the reform movements here in the UK. Which brings us on quite nicely. Loose segue there, folks. We're getting there. To today's guest, who is a cannabis advocate, activist, and medicinal consumer. They are the current chair of Northamptonshire Cannabis Social Club and the founder of Boroughfest, an annual multi-day festival celebrating the UK cannabis culture. They are James Rogers, better known as Jim. How are you doing, brother?
Not too bad. Thanks for having me on. How's it going?
Pretty good. You're very welcome. Thank you for taking the time to jump in the hot seat this week. I do appreciate. Obviously, we've got a good bit to cover here for people that maybe don't know Boroughfest. I think that's going to be kind of the bulk of what I want to talk about for this podcast. But before sort of leading up to that, I think we'll ask sort of the traditional cliched question I ask every guest that jumps in the hot seat that's involved in cannabis. And that is sort of how and when you first got involved with cannabis.
When I was about 12, 13 at school, smoking joints.
Nice.
Anyway, when I shouldn't have been you know what I mean? But that was about it really. And been a cannabis user since then.
So it's just always sort of been around you.
Yeah, we couldn't get served in the local pubs in the villages because everyone knew our parents, knew who we were, but we could get hold of weed, and it was safe. We weren't puking up everywhere. And we just sat there and giggled and ate cake and enjoyed ourselves, and that was it really.
So I think I saw yesterday when I sent you an email your birth year. So that would mean this was occurring, around 1990?
Early 90s, yeah, early to mid 90s.
So what was sort of was this solid? Was this what we would call tack up north?
Plenty of nice hash back then. We used to have like your red seals, your gold seals, your golf balls, all different types of hash. Soap bar was a rarity, but obviously became the mainstay towards the mid-90s, towards late 2000s and that. But yeah, and then you had like a couple of different types of weed that we could get hold of, mainly compressed bushes. But you had like Thai stick, and then you get like compressed Jamaican weed and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, and then occasionally you get some Dutch or Spanish weed, which was more like the nugs that we have today. And then yeah, to like I say, towards from like mid to late 90s, yeah, the weed just got better, and you only had soap bar around for quite a while. But now we're back to a stage where you can't really get soap bar, and there's plenty of nice hash and lots of nice weed, so it's all good.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? The sort of the swings and flow of supply sort of here in the UK. So obviously, yeah, early 90s, yeah, as you say, there was quite a lot of Moroccan, Lebanese, and various other regional hash sort of still moving down that sort of traditional hippie highway, the routes that were kind of established in the 60s and 70s to bring that quality hash to sort of the Western world, or the Western Hemisphere rather. Yeah, interesting. I mean, you speak of the compressed weed. It makes me think of, I think, around Durham sort of ways. I'm not going to name the individual that was responsible for it, but we ended up with what we called MDF for a while, which was very, very akin to that Jamaican squashed brick. And it was like almost the whole plant. You kind of pull out a bit of stalk, the whole thing, and it was just compressed,
squashed together, wasn't it?
Yeah. It's interesting because obviously it speaks towards the necessity for sort of smuggling and trafficking. So obviously cannabis was compressed and hash was easy. You could stack it, blocks, you could move it quite thick, quite far. Obviously, a lot of people, because I was the same, I sort of grew up around what we would consider tack, which was quite low grade soap bar when I was around sort of 13, 14. And yeah, I always have that petroleum smell. You'd always have that kind of chemically smell of where it had been brought over in oil containers or in
fuel tanks, in tires, and all sorts. Yeah.
yeah. So it would always carry that sort of lingering smell. It's almost nostalgic in a certain way when you catch that smell. Like when I'm walking through like one of the council estates or whatever, and it catches my nose, and I'm like, oh man, I'm a youth again. It's odd that you speak that there is such a demand for hash, but especially amongst generations of individuals sort of like your age and older that grew up with it, that was kind of the staple.
Yeah, that was what we had, man. Like I say, weed was like few and far between, and what you could get was not very good quality. It was always some compressed rubbish that wasn't. It was just twig and seeds, and you get a tiny little bit of bud, but you got the odd giggle from it, and that was it. But hash was always there, and there's lots of different types of hash, and it was, and it was always good quality.
Yeah.
We went through the really shit quality bit for a while, but I'm glad that we're out of that, and there is, lots of different varieties now available out there.
Yeah, hash is really becoming more the connoisseurs market. If you think of people like Frenchy Cannoli and what their influence has been on hash over the past sort of 10, 20 years and the way that it's evolved. It's difficult here in the UK that we don't really have so much domestic production of, traditional sif or bubble hash because of your BHO market, because people obviously want to make shatter and other concentrated products. So we see that kind of diversion. You used to see quite a lot of the old school growers would take the time and would sift their trim, close trim, even sort of the lower halves of the plants. But yeah, it's not around anymore. So anybody listening, bring back the hash. We want more hash. More hash. So yes. Okay, so we figured out when you first sort of got involved with it. I described you in the intro there as sort of a medicinal consumer. When would you say you sort of figured out that you were not just enjoying it, but that it was beneficial to your sort of your health and well-being?
From a young age, I say my early teenage years, really, as I was experiencing like pains and aches in my legs that I was told were growing pains and stuff like that. That clearly aren't, because I still get them, and I'm 45 now, and I've not grown any in quite a while. So, so I found out then that it helped, and to sort of, there wasn't a great deal of research material about. You had Jack Hearer's book. I've still got my original copy upstairs from the 90s that we got off Northampton Market. But other than that, that was about the only sort of information on the plant that was available back then. We didn't really have the internet as such in the way that it is today. So yeah, and it was just from a young age I've used it. I preferred it compared to how alcohol and stuff works on your body. So yeah, after seeing people throw up in the car park, the local pub car park and fighting and stuff, and you're sitting there thinking, nah, that's not for me. I'll just go and smoke a joint down the spinney and just chill out.
Yeah, man. Yeah. So yeah, you obviously found it beneficial quite early, and as you say, the limitation of information has been a massive hindrance for the generations prior to sort of, well, I suppose my generation. I was kind of the transitional generation of the digital revolution. The widening of TV screens and fucking the creation of fucking Wi-Fi and all that shit, smartphones, social media, and all the other lovely tools of enslavement that we currently have within our lives. But yes, so you grew up through the 90s and through the noughties, so you lived through a change of sort of policy, of approach. Do you remember ever seeing a transitional point where cannabis went from being sort of this benign thing to like the creation of this like skunk psychosis myth?
I mean, they used to call it all skunk and stuff when we were kids growing up. And I mean, I remember like being like 14, 15 at school, and they're going, oh, within a couple of years, 3 years, it will be legal, and it's still not. But I'd definitely say from the mid-90s onwards, you saw a lot more propaganda, definitely on the news, about it being such a dangerous thing and mind-altering and all that sort of stuff. The usual propaganda that's been around for quite a while. But I'd say definitely from like the mid-90s onwards, the more propaganda was about it.
Do you think that, or did you sort of live through or experience that actually impacting the culture at all? Like the people around you, did anybody sort of hear this rhetoric and kind of go, well, oh, I need to stop this dangerous drug now?
No, everyone just thought, what a load of rubbish. and just carried on smoking and being normal.
Mm,
You know, and it's for a lot of people I know, it's not what the law said has never really affected their lives. They've just
mm,
carried on smoking like myself and doing what they do. You know, I didn't get arrested for weed until I was like 35, something like that. And I got caught growing weed. I had 55 plants. And yeah, they come round, tapped on my door and arrested me. And yeah, that was my first sort of real sort of thing. Like I said, I've been an activist for a long time, but that was up until then, that was my only real negative impact,
mm.
you know. So yeah, and since then, it's, you know, it is what it is.
Yeah. So what happened with the plants and the police in the end?
Um, I ended up getting, I think it was like 60 hours community service and a 60 quid fine for 55 plants, and then that was it.
Was this during the rescheduled phase? Was this when cannabis was class C?
Um, I honestly can't remember. It was about, I'd say, how old am I? Yeah, it was probably about 7 years ago, something like that.
I don't know. So it'd have been after the change. So it was 2004, 2009.
8
The
years
UK.
ago, maybe. Yeah,
That's not a bad outcome, all things considered.
yeah,
So it's interesting. So what? So obviously, if you've lived in Northamptonshire sort of your whole life.
yeah. Pretty much my whole life. Yeah, I lived out in the villages as a kid, and then moved to town when I was 17.
Mm. So how has the police's approach to cannabis changed sort of since your youthful days behind the, what did you describe it, the bike sheds or whatever it was you said?
Um, they've always been pretty hard on it in Northampton on smoking and stuff like that. They've always sort of towed the line quite a bit. We seem to be like the testing ground for certain things. I know tasers and stuff like that were tested here, and pepper sprays and all that sort of stuff. Do you know what I mean? So
Mm,
the new laws have always been sort of implemented and tested around here. But at the moment, they seem to be just concentrating on like proper serious crime, which is a
mm.
good thing, really, which is where they need to be concentrating.
Yeah, for sure, man. Interesting that you mentioned sort of about Northampton being sort of a proving ground, as it were, for kind of new police policies. Um, d- does the local sort of population or community require this? What I would sort of use as conjecture to say over policing. Is there
Mm.
at higher levels of crime there than
Just because
elsewhere?
we're in the middle of the country, they can test and gauge what the reaction is going to be of the public, and then
Mm,
compare it to other places and whatever. But
mm.
yeah, we've always had stuff tested out here first, and it'd be nice if we have coffee shops here first. Never know.
Yeah, would be nice. Would be nice. I suppose I do know of a few different projects going on currently to try and get discretionary observational models put in place for clubs and coffee shops in the UK. Whether they'll amount to anything is a different question, but there is will there within certain sectors and certain political corners. Obviously, that's, as we were kind of alluding to before we started talking, very difficult because politicians are full of shit. You know, that's just the nature of being a politician, it would seem.
Yeah,
um,
got to be able to chat shit and fluently.
yeah. I was going to mention fucking what I see earlier, Matt Hancock wearing a fucking Newcastle shirt. Somebody had shared a thing of him bigging up like Newcastle going to Wembley and created this whole fucking debacle of apparently he'd allegedly raffled off this shirt last year and it was a signed shirt and just again they can't help but lie. They are just so full of shit.
Impulsive liars, a lot of them.
Yeah, but that's what politicking is. It's creative lying, isn't it? It's
Mm.
manipulation and using sort of rhetoric and other means to facilitate the implementation of your philosophy, your beliefs, your ideology, you know? And yeah, what are we in? Nearly 13, 14 years of Tories. They're doing pretty well at it, you know?
And it boggles the mind how they're still in. But anyway,
Yeah, I think it just shows that if Joe, for all I'm a Corbyn fan, if Corbyn was anybody else, Labour would have won that election with a fucking landslide.
mm.
But the fact that it was Corbyn and a much more left-leaning government than would have been, acceptable to the Fleet Street Mafia, the media, the legacy media cartel, then yeah, they just decided to fucking sabotage him. So yeah, we go into an election next year with a likelihood of fucking Kira no personality Starmer being the new prime minister. And to be fair, anything's better than a Tory, but I'm still very nervous about how blue that man's fucking skin is underneath his suit.
They're all just the same, aren't they? Really, it's just the illusion of choice, and that's all they present. They're all just the same agendas, the same, the same people behind it all. So it's just going to be another farce. But well, we'll just have to see what it does now. It affects our lives, isn't it?
Exactly. I think with the cost of living and sort of fuel bills going up and the deregulation of everything leading to the collapse of everything, I'm hoping enough people can just kind of go, well, anything's better than what we've currently got, and then from there we can try and make ground. My hope or my belief is actually that it'll probably be a rainbow coalition, that Labour just won't get enough of a majority, that they'll need the Greens and some other parties in other devolved regions to prop them up. And I think in doing that, it'll force them to be a bit more accountable rather than just switching to like a new Labour on acid kind of Labour party, which would just be a bit beneficial in some ways, but I think destructive to the majority of the populace in others. But yeah, you're right. They're very much one and the same. It's just the spectrum of harms, they're all going to hurt you. It's just a case of which one does it less.
Yes, right. Yeah.
So Northamptonshire, obviously, you are now the current chair of Northamptonshire Cannabis Social Club. Could you tell us sort of a little bit about the club, how it was founded, how you came to be the chair, etc.?
It was going for a couple of years before I got involved. The guys that were running it were moving out of Northamptonshire, and they wanted somebody local to take it over, and I just sort of stepped up, and I've been doing it ever since. We'll try to hold as often as possible monthly meetings or a couple of times a month, and we'll hold like a medicated meal and stuff like that. And we always give out like medicated snacks and brownies and whatnot and stuff like that. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, we have a small group, normally about 20 to 25 people at every meet turn up, and that we're getting bigger slowly. You know what I mean? But it's nice, and we've got a nice group of guys and people that all come and attend. Nice little community. So yeah, quite happy with it.
Nice one. It's good that you've managed to keep that community. So how long would you say you've been chair?
Jesus. I'd say probably about 10 years now, something like that, maybe a little bit longer. I can't remember how long it's been going now.
So it was one of the sort of first iteration of the UK CSC clubs, started by Greg DeHood.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Greg started up UK CSC, and it was through Greg that Greg helped me get all the bits and bobs sorted for the Northampton Cannabis Club.
Nice. It's good to see that. I don't know sort of what it means, but UKCSC's Instagram page has become a lot more active recently.
Back up and running, which is really good. I'm happy to hear that.
Yeah, it's really good to see. Really good. Hoping that this will lead to a renaissance, a reinvigoration of kind of the movement of social clubs, because the one point prior to the C word we shan't say because I can't be asked getting this fucking not demonetized, deprioritized and fucking shadow banned, the C word, the pandemic that happened. Prior to that, the clubs were really striving. We had sometimes 2 or 3 events across the country each weekend.
Yeah, constantly stuff going on, and then because obviously we all got locked in our homes for a couple of years, it just sort of ruined that, which is a shame. But it's good to see that there are more and more groups coming online, and that people will hopefully again be doing more and more protests and meeting up more, and just smoking more weed.
Hell yeah. Couldn't agree more. And I think it's the sense of community as well is something that the club, because we obviously vendor events and field events are still pretty prevalent. There are some teams, shout out to the crews, I'm not going to shout any out because then when I forget I'll get annoyed that I didn't shout you out, that are doing the work putting on these events. And they are creating access points, they are creating community, they are creating entertainment and camping events, etc. But they're still missing the community element of kind of signing up to a small group and meeting up with those regulars and building and forging bonds and relationships with them that then can it become friendships beyond just around sort of cannabis? And I think that's something that we massively need now post the lockdowns, because psychologically, I think we got used to being separate. We got used to just consuming more online media, more social media. We got used to just occupying our time and busying ourselves rather than planning and planning and to spend time with each other, planning to have these places that we can feel safe together. I say that as cannabis consumers, because obviously the clubs create these spaces where people can consume safely. They have the acceptance of other people, knowing that they won't be judged for their cannabis consumption or for what they want to talk about. It's those kind of community hubs, I think, are vitally needed now more than ever, really.
Yeah, definitely. People need to start doing more socials and getting out again like it was. It's just a shame that, it couldn't be helped. It died down because we had no choice over that. But I'm hoping now that, people can get out again more. Especially, this year we should get out, do more events everywhere, wherever we can.
Yeah, for sure, man. For sure. I think while the current whatever Home Secretary we have and the debates going on in their offices about what they're going to do to limit.
From one week to the next, who's in charge, who's doing what, it's ridiculous.
It's very difficult, but there is an underlying narrative that is rolling out of the Home Office, and that is this idea of cracking down on protest, of mass civil disobedience, kind of what has been the raison d'etre, the kind of motivating thing of the cannabis community. Yeah, they don't want us to do it. So I think this year we kind of got to get out there while we can. Neil Woods will be back on the podcast again, folks, at the end of March, and we're going to discuss all of this. We're going to discuss what happened with Suella Braverman, with Priti Patel, with the proposed legislation changes, where they're at, what this means, and the consequences. Because as people involved in this space, obviously this is something we should be quite nervous about, because the rules outlined in the proposed legislation basically mean that if a protest happens in your area, regardless of the subject, if you have previously protested another subject within 2 years, the police can come to your house and lock you in your house under tag without any prior suspicion. These are some of the most draconian, most dangerous. Yeah, dude, they were talking about like 10 years in prison for organization of civil disobedient events. So yeah, like I said, we're gonna outline that at the end of March with Neil Woods and really try and understand where we're at, what rights we have, and what they're trying to do, so that we can, if this is our last year, we're gonna go out with a fucking bang. Put it that way. But yeah, agree. We definitely need more sort of collective action, and we need more of these sort of social hubs popping up. I've been sort of discussing with a local cafe in Durham about the idea of creating another drop-in for Durham City Cannabis Club and restarting that. Because again, the same happened to us. We had a venue, we were running very well. We've taken over a spot every Tuesday. They had like a wonderful, beautiful dojo and a cafe, and we were literally going to be doing like medicated yoga in the dojo. We had like a wonderful courtyard area, and they were just basically letting us take over and just run from it as a full club, and mutually beneficial for both parties. We were really building a strong community. And then unfortunately, due to the pandemic, I mean, Durham, I think, was the second worst city, apart from York, for shop closures, for retail space collapse, basically, during the first wave of lockdowns, and they subsequently went under. So, yeah, we're in discussions with another cafe to potentially build out the same, because
hope you get somewhere.
Yeah, fingers crossed. Like I said, I think they're quite interested. What we're trying to ascertain is Durham's police, their current attitude. For all, obviously, Ron Hogg and Mike Barton, rest in peace, the late Ron Hogg. They did some amazing work kickstarting the checkpoint diversion schemes and everything up here. But our new PCC, our new chief constable, or is she PC? No, she's PCC. Joe Allen. Joe Allen? I'm trying to read a post or something. Yeah, Joe Allen. She's basically come out and she's exceptionally anti-drug. So I think her last 3 announcements have been she was the one who's pushing for nitrous oxide to be scheduled as a drug, which just isn't going to happen because of its legitimate use. It's too hard, too difficult of a thing that they're going to be able to
plan anything and everything, aren't they? Really, that gives you a tweak.
Yeah,
and it's just it's ridiculous.
Yeah, you're allowed sugar, alcohol, tobacco. They're 3 drugs, or caffeine. Sorry, and what is it? I can never remember the drug that's in chocolate. But yeah, the drug that's in chocolate as well. They're like the 5 drugs that were allowed.
We're allowed. Do you know what I mean? Can you imagine if they banned chocolate?
Yeah, this is the thing when Theresa May's
And bag of chocolate, you know?
yeah. Yeah, man. Theresa May, during the lead up to the January 2017 creation of the new novel psychoactive substances act, they'd not included shit like that, so they'd completely forgotten it. So in the first few drafts, they were going to criminalize caffeine, and they were going to criminalize chocolate, because they just completely forgot until somebody kind of pointed out, went, no, they're drugs. A drug is a drug is a drug. Legality is irrelevant. A drug is a drug is a drug. And then, fuck, that is psychoactive. It is a drug. We do have to figure that one out. So yeah, they're ridiculous. They're stupid, and then just reactionary. They don't have a clue, and it leads you back to this kind of conversation of what are they so scared of? What is wrong? Think of festivals every summer. How many tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people take drugs for 3-4 days in a row, and nothing bad happens.
They just don't want people free thinking, that's all. And just because some substances, they make you look at things differently, and they don't want that. They want to control the narrative. They don't want you having ideas for yourself and enjoying yourself. They want you doing what they say when they want it.
100%, 100%. Because yeah, if you think about alcohol as a neurological depressant, they consider it a neurological retardant, but it's potentially a controversial term. But basically, yeah, if you consume alcohol 3-4 times a week, the way that alcohol works, because of your metabolism and everything else, you're slowing your metabolism and you're slowing your neurological processing. So then you're not ever not under the influence of alcohol, for all your blood level drops, etc. In terms of the effects on neurology and the wider the entire system, you're still having the continual consequence of that. So yeah, they're quite happy with that, because then all you're thinking about is, Monday, Tuesday, you're hungover. Wednesday, you're like, oh god, it's the longest day. Thursday, yes, going out drinking tomorrow. I get so fucked up on Friday that it's Sunday that you sleeping through it. It's that cycle, and that's what they want. And this is why, in my opinion, I think cocaine is allowed to be as prevalent as it is, because it's an egoic enhancing substance. It makes you very selfish. This isn't to speak again, I'm for the liberation and access of all drugs. I don't think the criminalizing of any substance is useful. I think cocaine, same as anything else, is a useful substance in the right context, but can lead to abuse. Coca-ethanol, so a cocaine taken in conjunction with alcohol, creating coca-ethanol, not good. Really, really, really not fucking good. It kind of is the worst aspects of both, but it's that kind of egoic, kind of me attitude. They're happy with that system. That makes you an exemplary consumer. You're then going to be thinking, yeah, me, I need to get a new shirt to go out. I need the new this, new that, new this. I need to go and spend money for my haircut. I need to go spend money for this. I need to go this. You're a good consumer. You're good within that system. But then the guy that's on the weekend taking a couple of trips of acid in the woods, and then decides, actually, no, I'm going to move off grid and I'm going to grow my own food, and they're removing themselves from that economic system, and they're becoming an obstruction to
not being a good cog, are
they? Exactly. And this is the same with most substances, and this is what I fear is happening with psychedelics at the minute. So we're seeing, obviously, actually, I'm going to shout out my own shit here because it's my show. I can do what I want. I've just relaunched the Simpa Life website, and I'm from mid-March doing a new blog series alongside the relaunching of Last Week in Weed, where I'll called the Trip Report, where I'll be exploring sort of psychedelic culture in the emerging industry. And so, yeah, part of that is I'm basically going to be working on a protracted blog series exploring 3 stories from the previous week or the previous fortnight, and just with this theme of looking at this co-option that's happening instead of them going, oh, you're right, these things do have medicinal benefit and you should be allowed to go and pick mushrooms in Wales and camp in the hills and go bathe under a waterfall and have a wonderful trip and beautiful session and deal with your depression that way. To go, no. You have to come to our clinical environment, our very hygienic, very horrible, that smell of hospitals, that kind of, the imagery you've got. And they go, oh, yeah, we'll throw some iconography and some cushions down and you can come and trip with us. And it's like,
so far removed from nature.
Yeah, so that's not what most people want. Most people, they want to get away from the constructs, the straight lines, the fucking geometry that is the designed world of man, go back to nature of all of those waves and bumps, and do you know what I mean? The natural forms, that in and of itself is, I think, quite cathartic for the human spirit. Then when you include these entheogenic compounds, and then you include other people, that bonding and connection, that very animalistic sort of experience, I don't think can be replicated in a clinical setting. I just don't think it can.
Very, very, very powerful thing. And the thing is, they don't want people hanging around together and having the whole community thing. That's why they've done so much over the last few decades to split up communities. Because when people are together, they're stronger.
Hell yeah.
So they're doing the old divide and conquer, and they seem to be succeeding for the most part. But I think that we can get back to how we should be. It's just there's enough of us out there that have got the right state of mind. So I think eventually it should all be all right. Fingers crossed.
I think we're seeing sort of a generational shift. I saw somebody break down something on YouTube the other day, quite interestingly. I can't remember the name of the book, but it was basically a concept of a guy who wrote this book in '97, and he was talking about how we live in 80-year cycles, and they're broken down into 4 of these. He used an obscure word that I can't remember what it was, but for these 4 different sections. And so within them, there is this, there is a high, then there is kind of a leveling, then there is a demise, and then there is kind of like a revolution sort of thing of every 80 years we move through these. And I think at the minute, as you said, it started basically with Thatcher. Thatcher over in the UK, over in the States was Reagan and Reaganomics, and it was the deregulation of industries. It was the unleashing of capitalism, the vehement beast upon the people, and it has been feasting upon our communities ever since. If it doesn't make profit, it is not important. Look at what they did to all like the Showstar centres. Look at what they did to fucking youth centres. As a kid, man, I remember we at the Eufy in Chesley Street was fucking on fire. You go down there and everyone up to the age of like 16, 17 was there because you could get away with fucking smoking in there. People would have the little hip flasks or whatever. You could get away with smoking a bit of hash out back. You know what I mean? There'd be places to go play football. There'd be fucking music. There'd be a tuck shop. There'd be spaces for people to occupy, young people to be. And guess what we weren't doing? Getting fucking harassed by the cops on the street because we were in a safe fucking space. Yeah. And so, yeah, same with the miners, with then the increased emphasis on class warfare that came coupled with this new neoliberalistic system. I think it is we're now falling out or into that kind of last revolutionary quarter, which means we're leading into the high. So then I'm hoping that politically in this country we kind of do what even the Conservatives are talking about now and go, all right, we kind of fucked it. Let's privatize. Let's renationalize a load of shit. Let's figure it out. Put some money back into the system and try and reinvigorate the economy via the people instead of via the corporations, because all they'll ever do is squander their investment and fucking seek to profiteer from the destruction of our communities.
Yeah, we'll only ever get breadcrumbs though. It's all just token gestures, isn't it? Really, a lot of it. They don't ever do anything unless it benefits themselves, and it's
yeah.
All they want to give is just breadcrumbs, and then sometimes they'll sugarcoat those breadcrumbs so you think they're extra nice, and then that's that.
Yeah, or they'll show you the loaf. They'll trick us. They'll go follow the loaf, follow the loaf. And then you get to the end of it and they cut it up and put it in their soup and they're sat eating, and we're just like, well, please, sir, can I have some more? Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, that's my fear for what's sort of happening with, let's say, cannabis and psychedelics in general, of just this co-option of drugs, of rather than them going, no, you're right, you people should be allowed to do what you want within reason. If you break the law under the influence of these drugs, we have laws for that. If you get in your car and you're driving with fucking drugs, driving without due care and attention, dangerous driving, etc., we have ways to then charge those offences. If you're then producing a load of drugs and fucking selling them for profit, that's a tax problem. Do you know what I mean? If you're stealing the electric, that's a theft problem. There are enough. Just stop the criminalization of the drugs themselves and allow responsible, reasonable consumption, trade, and social use. We figured that out. We've seen it at the events for years that, if somebody pulls a whitey because they've had too many edibles or whatever else, the people around them are there to support them.
Look after them, that's what you're doing.
Yeah, and even the people that selling them are going to be like, oh, mate, careful, don't eat all of that. They'll be giving harm reduction advice while they're providing the product. You don't get that from bars. Bars, it's illegal
to make money from locking people up, though. So while they continue to make money from locking people up, you're always going to get it. So it's...
And same with the tag system and the judiciary and all the rest of it. It still runs as a for-profit system, ultimately, when you look at it. For all it's funded by the government, there are still people making good wages to lock people in cages for a couple of plants or for a baggie of whatever miscellaneous powder. It's such an absurdity. It really is.
It's just,
Frustrating.
thing is, it's a phase that we've got to go through as a society. It's just a shame that we have to be experiencing it, you know.
Mm,
But in 100 years' time, they'll look back at that and go, "Really, really, was that loud? What the fuck?" But it's we've got
mm.
to go through it to get to there, I suppose, haven't we?
Yeah.
But we're in a better position now than what we were 20 years ago or 30 years ago. I mean, the fact that
Mm,
you can get cannabis on prescription now, and it actually looks like nugs and smells all right, it's a big step forward, So
mm. Yeah, you exactly that. I mean, basically since the early 90s and the creation of kind of licensing for low THC cannabis cultivation in the UK, so-called air quotes hemp, there has been this kind of cascade. Obviously, then when California came on board, we had a royal commission in 96, 97, I think it was, basically recommending that, we explore cannabis as a potential therapeutic, that we look at the criminalization of it. That then obviously led to the 2001 kind of conversation of David Blunkett changing the law, which eventually came into act in 2004. But then obviously under Jackie Smith was Home Secretary under Gordon Brown in 2009. So I was like reading something in my head there. In 2009, upped it back to a B. But other than that blip of going back up, yeah, generally, if you look at it over time, the number of people incarcerated, the measure of the level of severity of the punishment as well is generally coming down. And yeah, as you say, the prescription system, I actually wanted to get your thoughts on this because I know that you signed up quite early on to the script system and yeah, sort of have alluded to not having the best of experience. So I wanted to just sort of get
yeah,
your opinion
quite
on
a
it.
few years, a couple of years ago now. It was just after they started doing the prescriptions, and I managed to get myself a prescription for my fibromyalgia and tendonitis. And the plant material that I got through was not the best quality, but it looked like weed. It was not the freshest smelling, and I've still got it, to be honest. I didn't really use it because I just wasn't impressed with the quality. But having seen the quality of the stuff that's coming out now, it has improved, and the price has gone down, and it seems to be getting easier for people to be able to get the prescriptions, which is a good thing.
Mm,
So I was just impressed that I managed to get something that actually that looked and smelled like weed, I suppose. But it has changed an awful lot since I got my prescription, and I only did 1 month's prescription. I couldn't afford to mess around with it again. But
mm,
it has got cheaper, but it's not for me. If some people want to go down that line, then that's fine, and that they can do it.
mm,
But it's not really for me because it's just the variety and being able to choose rather than being told. I think maybe
mm,
it's when I got it, they couldn't tell you what the strains were. I know now that they can tell you what the strains are and stuff like that. But when I got it, we weren't told. It was just red this or blue that, and that was it. So
mm. Yeah, it was an odd period, wasn't it? Where they were trying to hide, so they were selling like green crack, but
they
going,
didn't
"Oh,
want
this is
they didn't want
X,
you to
Y,
know,
Z."
so you couldn't go off and grow it yourself, or some other company couldn't start. I don't know. It was weird.
I think it was just almost to remove because the system, it's like the medical establishment kind of looks at the cannabis culture and goes, "What the living fuck is this?" They can't get their heads around it. They just can't. Obviously, part of that is ignorance in terms of their own knowledge base on the endocannabinoid system, on phytocannabinoids, endogenous cannabinoids, etc. And another part of it is
There aren't
the
so many strains about nowadays. That's the thing. Back in, when I was a kid, you got a bit of Northern Lights, you got some Purple Haze, maybe a bit of Pot of Gold or some Jack here and there.
pot
But
of
it was
gold.
now, but
Oh.
now there's just so many strains available 24/7.
Mm.
It's yeah, it's ridiculous, really. It's just too much choice sometimes because it's just like, well, what do you want? There's
Mm.
something there for every possible need or consequence.
Mm. Yeah, it's interesting. We're at a time where we've never had more choice, but we don't know how to choose. I
Yeah.
think that's the problem. It's interesting. I think Tesco did a psychological evaluation. No, I've completely fucked that sentence. Try this again. They did an evaluation of their store layouts and the number of products based on sort of psychological factors. And what they
Mm.
found was a concept that I'm going to misname, but basically the paralyzation of choice is that if they gave consumers too much choice, say they went in and went, oh, I want some salad cream, and they went up to salad cream, there's like 14 salad creams. There's fuck, I don't know. So they then just talk themselves out of salad cream. Do you know what I mean? So what they've done is they've now gone, all right, we need a diet one, the main brand one, maybe our own brand one, and that'll do. They're reducing the choices because it increases the likelihood of you then purchasing something, because then you're not stuck with this idea of going, well, I might regret not getting the right one. And that's the same sort of thing I think is happening with cannabis now. If you look on resources like, is it MedBud or Medibud? I'm not very good with the UK websites. I need to look at them a bit better. But those resources, they can show you the lists of what is available of the different products. But again, it's hard to then choose. You're basically looking at it and going, oh, that sounds nice. Because the mechanism by which the cannabis flower works really is the synergy of the main cannabinoids, the minor cannabinoids, terpenes, flavonoids, and to a lesser and certain degree some of the other chemical constituents. But it seems to be predominantly the ratios between these different things that give the effect. And yet they're still not prescribing in this country with talking about flavonoids or terpenes. It's literally on a percentage of CBD to THC. So then some people are going, oh, well, I had a 20% THC, 1% CBD last time, and say it was, I don't know, fucking Girl Scout cookies. And then the next one they went, oh, that's a 20 to 1. And they went and got like a super lemon haze. Like two very, very different reactions from that because of the terpene profile. And the consumer is then going to go, well, that's not working for me, and not understand why. Obviously, the people that came to the prescription system from the legacy industry and maybe have that education would know that. But even still, there's a lot of connoisseurs that I know, of people that really enjoy their cannabis, that still are not thinking about, well, how do I know what I like? They just kind of remember, well, I liked this.
So much variation. It's it's a natural plant, and from plant to plant, even from areas on the plant, it can vary so much. There is no sort of standardization of it, is there? So it's a difficult one to try and replicate as like a normal medicine.
I suppose she'll never fit into that standardized kind of model of modern pharmacopoeia. It's interesting. So obviously you make a point. So where we get with like cuts and things like that of different, what I suppose is technically called a chemovar. So you have like a cultivar of cannabis could be described as, say, Girl Scout cookies. And then, say, a chemovar could be described as Thin Mints. Or what are the other cuts of Girl Scout? There's like several cuts of Girl Scout cookies that obviously became quite prevalent, and they then got bred into various other things. So they're going to have different slight responses from the individual. But even if, as I always say on this podcast, if you and I sit and smoke the same bud from the same plant, we could end up with two very different reactions based on our endocannabinoid system and sort of the deficits and excesses within our system at any given moment.
We have our own individual needs and requirements, don't they? So it's going to affect us all differently.
Yeah. So I think in terms of doctors prescribing cannabis, I think we're doing it wrong. I think we need to look at the Californian system in 96 prior to or around the signing of Prop 215. Because that was basically the doctors, you'd go into the doctor and the doctor would authorize you to consume cannabis. You could then go to a dispensary, a medicinal, I hate the term, a medical marijuana, air quoting there for my listeners, dispensary, and you could just go and buy a product. And I think that's the difference, is the people that know the weed should be the ones distributing and in charge of the weed. The doctors should be looking at your system, your healthcare records, and going, do you qualify under the current legislation? And are there any contraindications I should be worried about? Are you taking any other medications? Do you have a history of psychosis? Do you have... No, that's probably about all the things I would actually seek to ask. You know what I mean? If you then hit the qualifying for that...
Not many questions you need to ask.
Once you qualify through the legislation, there's very little they need to ask. I had an interesting interaction with a prescribing physician, but only a few weeks ago, discussing cultivation, in which they said, well, I don't need to know information about if my patients cultivate, so there's no reason for me to document that. So it's good that some of them know that to not over record, and not, because obviously a lot of the patients want to be honest with the prescribers, but they're trained around medicine, as in the pursuit of understanding illness and overcoming that in the human body. So yeah, they should have some education on cannabis and how it sort of affects, but in terms of then having to learn about cultivars, chemovars, how the synergy of different things, well, I don't think they should be they don't need that much information. I think, do you know what I mean? It should be the distributors, the pharmacies and the distribution networks. They're the ones that should be far more clued up, because that's basically what's happening is the doctors are giving a recommendation based on the products that are available to them through the dispensaries they work with. But they're then just best guessing. They're going, oh, I've got a patient who had depression, you've got depression, so I can give you the same thing he's got. Like, there's no central data set. There's no, like, there's a I can't remember what the hell they call it. It's like the pharmacopoeia encyclopedia or something. It's a huge fucking book, and it's got basically all of the drugs in that are available on license or off licensed, off label prescribing. And yeah, cannabis, we can't put cannabis in that because it'll treble the size of the fucking book. Because as we were saying about the different types of the chemovars, cultivars, etc., it just needs to almost be an acceptance so that cannabinoids can aid with these conditions, or cannabis can exacerbate these conditions. Once we know them,
Yeah,
that's your thing, really, isn't it?
yeah. I mean, it's not a complete cure-all, but it certainly helps for a lot of people for a lot of things, and it does need to be looked at properly, and then it's taken, a lot more seriously than what they have been.
For sure, man. For sure. Exactly that. I'll echo that. It's not a panacea. It's not a cure-all. But it's interesting that there is a school of thought slowly coming out of, well, the academic paper I read on it, I think it was it was an Israeli university. And obviously Israel are quite ahead of the game in terms of what they're doing with mapping the human genome and cannabinoids, and trying to work out ways of identifying what terpenes, sequestered terpenes, cannabinoids, myocannabinoids would work in conjunction with your system. And the paper was basically using an analogy of a vitamin deficiency, which I think is a brilliant way of looking at this, that we're all deficient in our systems are deficient in effectively like a vitamin. It's like scurvy. So then you eat a load of oranges and shit and you consume vitamin C, you don't then get scurvy. So I think a lot of the conditions and ailments that we're seeing that have come into the human population in the past 150 years since the demonization of cannabis, you've got to think back even in this country, gruel that we used to serve to orphans, that was ground up cannabis seeds. Do you know what I mean? That's a complete protein in cannabis seeds.
Dietary and lifestyle change in the last 100 years. We've become a lot more sedentary. We've now, again, it's down to the choice. It's like you go into a supermarket and there is so much choice of food and stuff in there that you can either make yourself or is ready made for you if you haven't got the time. And it's just, the dietary lifestyles and everything has changed, and we need to sort of get back to a bit more naturalistic, not necessarily eating as many meals a day that we eat, because you don't need to eat 3 meals a day, really.
I mean, it's all constructed, breakfast and things like this, and the 3 meals a day was constructed as part of
eating.
It was constructed as part of shift work. As a part of, again, of us being good little cogs of going, no, you get up, eat your food, so then you can work for us, and then when you get tired, you take your break, you eat your food, you work for us again. Then you go home, you eat your food, you take care of the small tasks you need to maintain your home. You go to bed, then you get up and you do it all over again. The system is, with digitalization, with the way that the internet is, and moving into Web 3.0 and decentralization of various systems, I think we've hit the end of globalization, and people are recognizing that we can live in very different ways than we ever have as a species, and that's really shaking up the traditional economy.
Yeah, life has, it's weird how it is. It's completely artificial now, really. We don't even follow, most people don't even follow the natural cycle, sun up, sun down, because we sit there with our lights on watching telly or looking at your phone or whatever till wee hours or whatever it is. And so you're completely out of the natural cycle, and it does have a knock-on effect, doesn't it? It's not good.
Yeah, I think one of the things that then people maybe assume or think of why cannabis is this panacea, why it helps so many people, is I think for this grounding effect. That they describe it as a metacognitive inducing agent, so that basically you consume cannabis and you start thinking about how you think. So we've all had that experience. You've all seen somebody at a house party, they look baked off the face, like locked into the couch. They're going through every mistake they've ever made. They're fucking thinking about when they were 14 and what they said to that girl at the bus stop. Everything is going through their fucking brain, because that's a good thing that you're finally catching up with yourself. As you say, few of us ever allow boredom, ever try to facilitate a time where we're not doing something. And we fucking need that. The human brain needs to just catch up with all of the other thoughts, all of the other things, so that
Yeah.
you can kind of work out and address where you're
Chill
going.
out sometimes, doesn't it? Just needs to sit there and relax and chill and sort his shit out.
Yeah, and you need so you can look up and see where you are and go, holy fuck, I'm in my 30s. When the hell did this happen? Do you know what I mean? Very few people do that. They have their midlife crisis, maybe a few existential crises on birthdays sometimes or major life events, but then they never really do anything about it. They fall straight back into the old patterns and they end up living the same way for decades. Whereas cannabis is a metacognitive inducing agent, or, psilocybin containing mushrooms, DMT, even to a certain lesser degree, salvia and various other compounds like that, they force this kind of, I suppose the modern language now is we're saying that it ceases the action of the default mode network, or what they used to call it, ego death. So you're you who you think you are, and that little, lad, running through your life and telling yourself all that shit, that stops. And you actually get to be present and observe everything. And for a lot of people, that's terrifying. For some people, that's psychosis inducing, or as they, in their terms, they would say it's psychosis inducing. When it's not, it's a fractionation of your consciousness in a way that you're supposed to be able to pause and be, hopefully, using
Way people
status.
are conditioned to think, though, isn't it? Because
Yeah.
psychedelics changes the way that you think and what you think you can see is real and stuff. A lot of people can't handle that altered perception, so it does, freak them out a bit.
Yeah, it's the setting as well, which is what I was going to say is vitally important. That, yeah, if I'm going to go eat 5 grams of mushrooms and run around this festival, it's like, that might be a difficult experience for you, especially if it's your first time doing 5 grams. You want to go and do that in the woods or whatever by yourself, or in a home, or with a trip sitter, or with a friend that, again, is not necessarily qualified as a trip sitter, but understands what the fuck to do. You've prepared for those eventualities. You've got to go in understanding not necessarily the risks, but the potential consequences if you really fuck up in those situations. And again, it's about that responsibility. The government doesn't want us to have that ability to be responsible. They say we can go out and get as drunk as we want on the fucking high street and act accordingly, and that's fine and normalized. But yeah, we want to go into the woods, like I was saying before, around.
Take some mushrooms. No, you can't do that.
Yeah, and it's mental. Like, one of the best sort of experiences I've had with mushrooms was going with a group of people, picking them, camping. We dried out some mushrooms for the next day's eating. We had some in a tea over the evening. And
it's all part of the therapy, though, isn't it? And the experience itself, getting out there in the wild, in amongst nature, and just, I'd love it myself. It's great.
100%, man. And I think that's what we're missing, is the deliberate drive to be in nature. It's odd. I sometimes still get it where I'm walking through the woods and, like, you'll pass somebody and I kind of feel like, are they thinking I'm suspicious? Like I'm doing something wrong? Like, should I, like, as if I had a dog or whatever, there's your justification. But then people just out in nature and shit, sometimes people get a bit like,
standing there staring at a tree. People are like, right, what's wrong with him? Is he all right?
Yeah, but I think it's
not
just
normal behavior, is it? But like I say, if you're there with a dog or whatever, it's perfectly fine.
It should be normalized. I mean, last spring when I went camping in the forest in Hampstead for a week, and I built up a huge, like, campsite. Made it all like wooden fucking fences, been a big lean-to, slept outside for a week. I took, like, mushrooms one night, I took MDMA one day, and this guy appeared walking his dog, and he cut through and came into the woods, and I had this moment of, like, panic, and then I just kind of went, I'm just going to tell him, oh, I'm on drugs, sort of thing, and explain the situation. And he went, oh, that's cool. I used to go to the raves back in the day. We had this proper, like, fucking hit it off. And in the absolute middle of the fucking, like, you're literally talking like 20, 30 minutes away from a house of anybody inhabiting, in the deep part of this woods.
Like-minded folk, always in the right areas.
Yeah, we just bumped in, and I was just like, I want to be honest with this guy, because I didn't want him to think, I'm pin-eyed or whatever, and I'm a bit, you should be worried. I was like, no, I'm doing this thing of, like, it's all therapeutic. I come out to the woods, and what I do is I detox from technology. I bring a book, I cook all my own meals, you fucking everything on an open fire, and he was, get it, nice, completely get it.
Nice.
There's something powerful about it, especially, like, choosing to analyze your own consciousness as well, I think is quite a brave thing for individuals to do. It does take fortitude to want to go, maybe I'm wrong, maybe there's certain aspects of my personality or my life or the way that I'm living that I need to address. That's, even thinking that is a brave and bold action, but then taking action upon that to, well, you don't necessarily have to go into nature, but that's what I'll always advocate to people, because it reconnects you with something beyond your trauma, beyond your conditioning, beyond your experience. You are more that tree than you are the house you live in.
Mm.
Do you know what I mean? And it's once you can grab that again, you can recognize the joke of all of this. You can understand that this
There's
isn't
bigger
life.
things
This
out
isn't
there.
the yeah. There's
There's
this
more out there than just what they tell you and what's on the telly or on the radio or whatever, you know. It's
hundred
just turn
percent.
all that off and just go out, go camping, get out in the wild,
Yeah,
you
man.
know, watch the sunset, watch the sunrise, you know, and everything in between.
Well, like you were speaking of before, if you then start sleeping with the circadian rhythm. So when I was in the woods, when it was starting to get dark, there's not much more can I do. I can't go and forage, so I've got to make sure I've got all my firewood ready. I've got to make sure that I've got water or whatever down from the river, and I've boiled off what I need to, and I've prepped. And once you've done that, you've just got the darkness. And I'd read a book by some candlelight and head torch for a bit, and then you'd be asleep by 8 o'clock.
Yeah, it's mad, isn't it?
Yeah, and you don't feel like you're
But,
being
you know, I
forced
always
into
I always sleep better when I'm out camping and stuff like that. Anyway, again, because all the fresh air and stuff like that,
it.
and the different noises is it's a lot quieter. It's nice.
Mm.
It's just yeah, I love it, man.
Yeah, same. It's like barefoot as well. I've got barefoot for the week, and by the end of it, my back feels amazing. Like all of the muscle, because we walk on our shoes and on these flat surfaces, and it's just not good for our posture. We're designed to our feet and the muscles in the bottom of them to mold across the ground as we walk and move. So being able to do that back into nature, and then you're sleeping on, because I always get just basically build up the base of the forest, and I've got like a yoga mat sort of thing and a bit of plastic material, and then sleep on top of that, and like build like a lean-to over it. But that is just it's so good for the muscles. The first few days I'm always a bit, but then once I get loose into it, I'm waking up and like jumping out of bed. You know what I mean? You're awake as soon as the light is out. You're full of energy. You're full of life. It's I can't advocate it enough. I really can't. Which I think is a perfect segue onto Boroughfest, which is obviously a multi-day camping event. Quite interested to hear about the location this year. I do hope there's trees, because my favouriteest memory of Boroughfest was the one where you had the sort of the stage in the trees with the axe
That
throwing.
was in Bedford.
Mm.
Yeah, that was Bedford. That was really nice. We had the nice woods there
Yeah,
that the
that
guy
was lush.
planted himself. Yeah, that was really nice, man. But yeah, we have got trees. We're on a 40. We've got 40 acres within the walled gardens of an old country estate. The main
Yeah,
country home is no longer there, but all the grounds, the walls, and everything is all still there. And some of the trees there are like 200 to 300 years old, maybe older. There's some real big beauties there. They're lovely. Do you know what I mean? So, and we've got a lovely tree circle where we're going to have like the campfire area in there, so you can chill
nice.
in amongst the trees and stuff. Bit similar to how we had it in Bedford for the second one.
Mm. Beautiful, beautiful. I can see it's the space makes it, as we've just obviously discussed, being able to be around the trees and around and in nature. It's it's just a different sort of setting and different sort of environment,
Nice
isn't it?
connection. It's a nice
Mm.
connection, and like I say, it's a really lovely venue that we've got. It's completely secure. You've got a huge wall that runs around the whole estate. You know, it's lovely. It really, the people are going to love it when they get there, and you know, I'm going to stay over the night there before we have the event myself, just to get ready for it and that, because it's lovely. I want to spend as much time as possible there. It's great.
Sounds definitely. I think I might come down early as well then. So it's July 14th to July 17th, isn't it? Is that correct?
17th of July in Overston in Northamptonshire.
Nice, nice. Well, obviously, for anyone that missed that, we'll include details and ticket links and stuff below. So what else are you planning sort of for this year's event? What can people expect?
Obviously, we've got glass blowing, we've got arts and crafts, we've got some bushcraft skills, people that are going to be there as well, offering lessons. We can have our art boards back. We've got people speaking on different subjects, from medical cannabis, psychedelics, so on and so forth. We've got all sorts going on this year. We're going back to our roots, to how we were in our first events that we put on.
Nice, nice. Excellent. I think that's again, it's important, because it was always about community and about the overall experience, and I think that's what made Boroughfest such a boutique and sort of real.
Unique event.
Yeah, that's the word I was trying to go about out of my brain there. It was literally like not different. No, that's not right. But yeah, exactly. It's something entirely different. And I think in the context of sort of the other field events that we're seeing in the UK, I think it's more a representation of the overall
The
sort of
overall community.
yeah, because it's got everybody from different sort of vibes and as it were different tribes and backgrounds. So yeah, really excited to see sort of how the event goes down this year.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it as well.
Not sure what the fuck that was. Equipment, gremlins as usual. What were we talking about? Borofest. So you were just saying that obviously it's wonderful sort of sealed, what is it, 44 acres in a walled garden sort of thing.
Yeah, it's lovely, great Northamptonshire countryside,
Mm.
and yeah, it's lovely green, nice and quiet, and you're away from everything. It's like a nice little oasis.
Sounds lush. Sounds lush. How much are camping tickets for people?
They are £60 per person. So whether you come in a camper van, a motorhome, or a tent, it's 60 quid per person for the weekend camping. You can turn up on Friday from 12 o'clock and then leave Monday at 12 o'clock. So you get the full weekend for your money.
Nice, nice. Sounds good. Sounds good. So you said the oh wait, I think you said this prior to the recording. There's sort of water on site, sort of what the facility's like for, because obviously
Yeah,
quite a few.
we've got showers and toilets on site this year. We've got generators providing power as usual. We've got glass zone. We've got a music area with our usual Borofest DJs, and we've got a few extra surprises that we'll begin releasing in the next week or two as well. We've got a lot of work has gone into doing it this year. We've got quite a few announcements that we're going to be making over the next couple of weeks regarding it, just to sort of get people, more interested in it and show people what we're more about and that. So
Mm.
yeah, it's something that as a team we've put an awful lot of effort into, and we're really looking to putting Borofest back on again as it was before all the lockdown and all the silliness that happened with everything. And yeah,
Excellent, excellent. Yeah, needs to happen. We need that kind of a reset or a restart to kind of where we were, because yeah, there's just that blip, the whole blip of the lockdowns and the pandemic and all of that shit. And I think yeah, we're collectively all starting to come out of it, and now yeah, it's a case of rebuilding and shaping that future we want. And it sounds like Boroughfest is going to be quite a weekend for that. So yeah, quite a lot of tantalizing sort of announcements coming in the next sort of few weeks. So yeah, obviously, what sort of music can people expect? People that maybe don't know the Boroughfest DJs, what sort of tunes do they sling?
we've got everything from drum and bass to disco, bit of hip hop, bit of reggae, bit of everything really for to cater for all sort of tastes and likes and that. So yeah, we're a community festival, so we listen to what people want and we try and get DJs and acts to fulfill their musical needs for the weekend. So yeah,
Nice.
we'll be releasing the names of some of the acts in the next couple of weeks. We're just getting all the little finer details sorted. But yeah, it's going to be a great weekend with great music, great foods, great everything really. So we're looking forward to putting it on for everyone.
Awesome, awesome. So what times does music go on till?
Music starts from about 10, 11 a.m. And we've got a license until midnight for music. But then after that, we will have low level like acoustic music playing on and stuff in the chill out area with the fire pits and all that. So, and we've got fire dancers as well and a few other acts to go on during the night. We're looking at getting a cinema sorted out so everyone can sit there in their sleeping bags, have a big chill out watching films, popcorn,
That'd be
and
cool.
just chilling under the stars. So yeah.
Awesome, awesome. So with the cuisine, obviously it's in your sort of community festival, so you listen to the people. Quite a few people these days are vegan and vegetarian.
We have
So
a full range of vegetarian and vegan food vendors there. We also have stuff for the meat eating guys as well. So we've tried to cater for every possible need that we can, but obviously we can't cater for everything. But we've tried our best to get as much food in as we can, and we've listened to people's comments from previous years about the limitations and stuff like that we've had with food vendors and stuff. So yeah, we've tried to correct that, and hopefully this year we've got that sorted, and people will see that when they come in.
excellent, excellent. Yeah, sounding very promising indeed. Trying to think of what else people might be interested in knowing about the event. So tell us about sort of glass blowing, because that's obviously traditionally been one of the key areas of
Yeah,
both with
yeah. Basically, Borofest it's a way I say it's a community arts and craft festival, and it's for people in the cannabis community that can do stuff to come and say, look, this is what we can do, and to show people. So we have the glass blowing, and we have various other arts and crafts there. A couple of years ago, we had like a leather worker there who's doing leather craft lessons. We've got bushcraft lessons this year where you can make like a spoon. You can be taught how to do friction fire, various other little camping associated things that you need to know if you were camping out in the wilds. Do you know what I mean? Probably a little bit of foraging lessons as well. We're trying to be as trying to have as many things to do as possible rather than people just sitting there going, well, I'm bored now. Do you know what I mean? So we've got interactive artwork where you can go along and you can paint what you want on the walls, and then they'll be used as decoration for Borofest next year. Do you know what I mean? So it'll be part of the festival in ongoing years. We've got the art boards from the second event that we'll be having up as well. And yeah, it's going to be quite a lot to do. It's not just sitting in the field getting stoned. Like I say, you can have lessons. You can do glass blowing lessons as well if that's what you want to do. They're £60 a lesson, and that takes about an hour. If it's any longer, then we can sort out stuff. So yeah, it's going to be quite a bit to do, really.
Yeah, it sounds it. Excellent. I think what else people might ask. Are there any sort of group discounts? Do you do any concessions for anything or anything like that? Or is it just 60 quid across the board for tickets?
If you do a group of 10 tickets, we can offer a 10% discount. And they just need to get in touch with us, let us know what groups want to come along, and we can sort things out. We can sort out the email address for people to get in touch. And
Okay.
we can answer any questions as a case-by-case need.
Excellent. Well, I'll include obviously contact details for Boroughfest below so that anybody, if they want to participate in any which way, if they've got more that they want to give than just sort of attending, that are interested in vending, showcasing, etc. So yeah, anybody, you guys out there, I know quite a lot of you folks run businesses and are participating in the industry in some way. So yeah, do
come along, get a stall, show us what you're about, and show the community what you're about.
Yeah, man, for sure. So hit up the link below, guys, and drop Jim or the rest of the team an email if you're interested. Because yeah, it definitely sounds like it's going to be quite a good event.
Yeah,
Quite a
it'll
good
be
event.
great weekend, and we always have great weather for Borofest. So yeah, it's going to be good fun. So get your tickets and come along and see what we're about.
Excellent. So yeah, I think we've sufficiently kind of covered Boroughfest there and given some teasers. I'll do a bit more sort of announcing of the event as we go or toward the event in July. Once you guys have released some more names and musicians, etc., I'm sure I'll no doubt bring that up on the podcast. So the Cannabis Social Club, have you got any? I know you've done quite a lot of medicated meals. I've been lucky enough to attend some of your Christmas ones. In fact, the one put on by or cooked by Robin the other year was truly fantastic.
Yeah, we always have good turnout for those.
So have you got?
Yeah, we're looking for new premises at the moment that we need to expand. So we're looking for new premises. So as soon as we've got new premises, we'll be releasing some more information on meetups and what we're doing in the community around Northampton.
Excellent. Are you actually? I'm trying to read the list in my head, but I can't. Are you guys one of the police forces and regions that are doing the checkpoint diversion schemes?
I'm not sure. What's that about?
Basically, if the police stop you with low-level possession, they'll refer you to this kind of service rather than arresting you.
I'm not sure if that's going on in Northampton. I honestly couldn't tell you, so I don't really pay that much attention to what they're doing. So I'm not really good. I can't really answer that. Sorry, mate.
No, that's all right. I was just sort of curious, because again, you see a lot of things are tested out in Northampton. Be interesting that they should really be testing out.
Yeah, I'll have a little look, see what's going on, and get back to you on that one.
Because I'm just slowly building a kind of repository in my brain, if nowhere else at this point, of kind of the various jurisdictions and what their approaches are. Because, like I said, there are several parties interested in producing potentially policies and white papers about this idea of kind of observational studies where basically a police force just kind of goes la 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 for 18 months and the community can operate observed, and obviously that data is then used to to basically form an opinion or an assessment of what the community needs. What is the community? You know, what do we do? How do we act? And then build sort of legislation based on that assessment. You know what I mean? So, but I think Northampton would probably make a good spot to try it as well.
Yeah, no, I'll find out, see what's going on there. Have a look online, see what they're saying about it.
Appreciate it, man. So would you? It's a bit sort of these questions are a bit all over the place, but I'm just kind of looking through my notes here. You mentioned obviously you spoke of before your experience with sort of a prescription, with the systems having now sort of changed a bit. It's obviously quite a bit cheaper. Some clinics are offering like £5 a gram, £6 a gram. The appointments are generally a lot less, 50 quid, whatever, sort of an appointment, and then you're not kind of forced into an appointment. Well, you are every 3 months, I think, or at least after the first 3 months. But you can have that period where you can just re-prescribe. Some of the prescribers are doing it as well for free, in terms of there isn't a cost to get the next prescription. So I was just wondering, is anything that's changed currently, or do you think there's anything that could change in that system that would entice you personally to be like, go on then?
Probably having like a dispensary that you can walk into and actually see a human being, rather than talking to somebody down the phone that you may or may not know, and somebody that you can then talk to another human being face to face, and actually again see the product as well before you buy it, is always a big thing. Because it's nice to see what you're getting, rather than taking, you know, just a stab in the dark and not knowing what's going to turn up really. That for me would get me back, if I could have like a clinic where you could drop in and go in and go, right, okay, this is what we've got, what do you need, blah blah blah. That would definitely get me back in.
Yeah, I think that's the way they increase the numbers. I mean, recently it was just revealed that there's been about 20,000 patients privately that have received 90,000 prescriptions. So for some people, obviously, it's working, they're happy on that system, and they're going to keep going with it. But there is a drop off with people like yourself that have sort of experienced one prescription, or have only sort of had one interaction with the system. And yeah, I think that is a hell of a point. Most of us that come from the cannabis consuming space are used to being able to, you know, if you're lucky, you can go to a dealer and they'd have 2 or 3 different kinds, and you'd smell it, you'd look at it and go, and you'd be able to tell by the smell which one you're enticed by, not the name, but the smell. You go and go, that
smell and the look, and you know,
And I think that's
get more hands on, you know.
And again, being in a centralized space like that, the individuals that would be working there would be experienced, and over time become ever more experienced and be able to provide more information. And so, I think it's unfortunately probably something that is not being pursued at all by the current system, because they're quite happy with this by post system. They're happy just shipping drugs in the mail.
That's what I couldn't get. When I got my prescription, I thought, because it's a restricted medicine, that it was going to come by like private courier. Do you know what I mean? But the fact that it turned up with my normal postman with my gas bill, and I was like, oh, what's in this box? And then I opened it up and I'm like, oh, right, that's it.
Yeah.
But if I send weed in the post, that's illegal. But
Yeah.
it was just a bit weird. I thought it'd be a bit more secure than what it is, you know. The stuff does go missing in the post from time to time. You know what I mean? I'm not saying that you know, it's just, I just thought for something as the effort they go to get it, and that it would have been a bit more secure on the delivery. It may have changed now, I don't know, but yeah, when I got mine, it just turned up with my gas bill, and it was a bit like, oh right, okay. But then that is sort of normalized though, isn't it? I suppose that's really how it should be. But
it does draw. You're right, it does normalize and help in that way, but it does draw attention to something that is problematic in the legislation that I haven't seen being explained, and that is how the fuck. So your postman walks down the street delivering that to your house. The cops stop him, search him, and find your cannabis on him. He's not licensed or exempt or authorized to carry that product, as far as I'm aware. So then the allegation that, again, huge allegedly, that I heard last year when I was trying to go through this from somebody in one of the clinics, is that the couriers are not informed. They're not aware of what they're carrying. And if they are not acting in awareness of what they're carrying, they can't be found in possession of it. The law requires mental and physical action or element within the law. You need to be mentally choosing to do the thing, and you need to do the thing. Otherwise, it's not a crime. You know, you can be physically have done the thing, but not be cognitively responsible. Therefore, you won't be punished for it. Do you know what I mean? And so I think that's my what's extrapolation from the law as it stands, because no one has told me of an exemption in the licensing or in the rules that says that the couriers are then authorized to carry a controlled substance.
Yeah, it was, like I say, it was just a bit shocking, and I think which is why we need dispensaries. This is why we need to be able to walk into somewhere like they have in America, and like the coffee shops in Amsterdam or Barcelona or whatever, where you can actually walk in, interact with people who know what they're talking about, rather than a doctor who may have read something online or whatever, but they've not worked it, their life. They're not passionate about it. It needs to be people that like people that are in the community that actually know what they're talking about, that people feel comfortable around, so they can go in somewhere, sit down, have a look at menu, choose the bits and bobs that they need, and then medicate safely. And yeah, we really do need to have that. It needs to change. There's no need to drag it out anymore. It can be done overnight. We've seen that laws can be changed overnight. In the last few years, it doesn't take years to do shit if people want it done. So it needs to be done.
Yeah, 100%. I think, it's putting that responsibility and that emphasis and the control back into the community, so that most of us don't want or don't need the interference of third-party systems. We have a culture, we have a community. We just want an end of criminalization. We just want to be able to live without fear, live without a worry of being locked in a cage, having our licenses taken, our jobs, fucking taken from us. And so, I think the dispensaries is a brilliant idea, but I think that's too close in this country to the American system and what happened, because obviously anywhere that MMJ, so-called air quotes medical marijuana, sort of proliferated in America, it then follows that there is a likelihood of at least the conversation of so-called recreational. And I think that's what they're fearful of. They only want cannabis in this country to be a medicine, therefore it can be then controlled by them.
Medical and recreational, it's the same thing. Whether you're having a joint to chill out at the end of the day, or whether you're using it for pain management, it's the same thing. You're using it for a medical reason, so. But yeah, they just need to fucking grow up a little bit and let us get on with a plant that we've enjoyed and we know is safe and relatively okay for the majority of people to use.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. And I think that's where sensible heads are getting. But as we kind of spoke of in the preamble, and as we've alluded to during this recording, fucking politicians are full of shit. So some of them may talk the talk, but they're definitely not walking the walk. Some of them walk the walk, but they're doing it for very different motivations than the talk that they're talking. So it's all very convoluted and difficult to understand what's kind of happening in the space here in the UK. But I think the best thing that any of us can really do is just continue what we're doing, just trying to build our community.
On doing it regardless.
Yeah.
And eventually, because if enough of us do it, they can't criminalize everyone, can they? They'll try, but if enough people are doing enough things, enough meetings, enough club meets, enough, whatever, people just need to get up and get to doing more.
Yeah, and just
keep and just show that we're not going to be, told what we can do. We're adults at the end of the day. We know what's right. We know what's wrong. So we shouldn't worry too much and just crack on with it.
100%. That's what my whole fight is for, is just autonomy, is the authority to regulate our own actions and to be able to just grow some fucking plants, do what we want with it. And as long as we don't break any of the laws, be left alone. And I think that's a fair and reasonable thing that a lot of people I've met in this space over the decades, I guess I've been involved in cannabis overall, they want first and foremost. And the systems of access, I guess, the nuance of what legalization or any other models sort of look like, is almost irrelevant. It's the freedom aspect that people want first. They want, like, what they look at America and see, but they don't necessarily understand some of the issues of the nuance of it. They just see the marketing gimmicks of it, of just everybody's open about their cannabis and cannabis is everywhere and it's cool. And that's what the weed community kind of want. They want to just be open. They want to be accepted by the wider society. And I think that means they don't want to also then be co-opted by it. They don't want to then be sold their culture back to them. They want to be able to proliferate. Some of them,
all this branded cannabis and all that sort of stuff, and yeah, it just can get a bit silly, can't it?
I mean, when it's craft industry and whatever else, and it's branded well, but if it's just marketing and advertising gimmicks and tricks and the manipulation of social media algorithms and all the rest of it and the attacking of competition, I mean, some of the bottom business practices going off in America of the big industries versus the craft is sinister, is truly sinister. Because they want the McDonald's of cannabis, they want the Burger King, they want like 3 brands of cannabis to run the world.
Mm.
And that's just not how the plant fucking works, as we've discussed it.
No. Yeah, it wants to do its thing, you know. It's
Yeah. Be interesting if cannabis being the most ubiquitous global resource is actually the resource that kills globalization, because it means that we don't need petroleum anymore. It means that we don't need, lithium ion cell batteries.
It frees people up. It stops us polluting nature unnecessarily. It really is the future, and people need to crack on to that, especially those that are in control, rather than taking the piss. But then they're just trying to do it so they can get whatever they can get out of it before they change the law and we can have the crumbs again.
Yep, that's the game. And that's where I think frustratingly,
say, it's not your pie, mate. This is our pie. We'll give you the crumbs if you carry on, but hopefully one day we'll get there.
Yeah, that's the thing of it. They've managed to trick us, beguile us, and confuse us and manipulate us into a position where they've just walked into our house, into our fucking kitchen, put on our fucking apron, and taken over. We've made the recipe. Yeah, we've hand kneaded it all. We've put it in the dish. And they're kicking us out of the way, shoving the fucker in the oven, and when it's finished, they're fucking off with it. And they've, like I said, manipulated us into believing that that's acceptable. That, like, right now, as a grower in the UK, if you're doing it legitimately, as in you're not stealing your electric, you're paying more tax than Google, than Amazon, than Microsoft, than most of the major corporations that fund these political fucking parties and the pageantry of this bullshit. You pay tax on your water, on your seeds, on your newts, on your fucking
Everything.
grow material, everything. Yeah, you're a better tax. You don't. Yeah, we don't need more taxes. We already pay those fucking taxes. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
The tricking us.
Tax.
Yeah, it's like, no, get your boot off my fucking throat. Don't make me polish it while it's on there. You know how wet. It's an absurd sort of position we're in, but I can understand why a lot of people are then going, oh, well, actually, yeah, well, let's just air quotes legalize, big L, legalize, let's just whatever. And it's like, well, no, but we have to understand what that means. Because if it doesn't mean that everybody is free, then it's not legal. It's wrong. You've missed the point. Cannabis is already legal in this country. It's just unlawful to possess it, cultivate it, trade it without license, exemption, or authorization. And we need to get to those base of reality instead of just going, oh, it's a binary of going, because legal is literally defined as making lawful that which was previously illegal. So it's just, we can't. Cannabis is legal. It's our actions that are criminalized, and that's the thing we need to liberate. And we need to have the human rights argument and conversation. We need to protest, and we need that unified.
Like I say, the fact that we can get it on prescription now, showing that it has changed, and they do know that they can't keep lying to us anymore, because we have access to stuff that shows us what's going on the other side of the world. And when people see that their family members abroad can get treated, yet they can't, people are now asking that question. But it is getting there, albeit very, very slowly.
Yeah,
It should have been done 20 odd years ago. Well, it should never been illegal in the first place, but
exactly that. It's a travesty. It's a farce. It is an act of collective social masochism, or sadism rather. Like, it's just such a self-destructive action. And now we're seeing the consequences of this when you look at, like, human health, we look at mental health, etc. And
the effect it's had on the planet, and so
yeah,
many of the things that damage the planet don't need you, because they can be made from hemp and not be made in such a damaging way and as polluting to the environment.
Yeah, or just we can then through consuming cannabis go, well, do I really need these things? Do I really want these things? You know, deprogram ourselves from the keeping up with the Joneses that we've been fucking indoctrinated into. The go, oh shit, I need a new iPhone. Oh shit, I need a new car. Oh shit, I need a new. Does it work? Is it functional? Does it pass in your life? Can you okay with it? Were you okay with it prior to realizing there's a better one? Then if yes, keep fucking using it. It's such an oddity. This system has got us into this cyclical thing of everything has to be new and consumed and constant when actually holding on to something and looking after something brings with it a different kind of emotional benefit, a different kind of self-respect and self-control and restraint to not just be manipulated by whatever the giant billboards, the screens, the quick little 5-second advert on YouTube or whatever tells you.
I've got hope. It'll change, hopefully.
Yeah, me too. Me too. I think we're at a point where just mass censorship and just like it's just a farce. Everything has become a farce. Nothing is truthful and nothing is based on evidence, rational discussion, scientific study or analysis. Everything is just mass marketing gimmicks and just trickery and lies, and it's slimy and sleazy. And I think everyone's just sick of being covered in it.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
Joys of the modern world we live in, with all the information that we have, people are actually a little bit thicker because, like I say, they just believe any old bullshit that pops up on their screen without actually questioning it, because for whatever reason they seem to believe that that's not going to lie to them, but people on the street will. But it's
Yeah, exactly that. Turn off the fucking news, folks. Go speak to somebody in the street. You will find you have far more in common with the most widely opposite individual to your current personality or social situation than you would ever believe. We are not as different as they trick us into believing. This whole weaponization of it was first the weaponization of political correctness, now the weaponization of identity politics is just causing subdivision. It's just forcing people into just ever smaller groups where they can't then defend themselves from the other groups, when actually, if we realized there is no division amongst us, there is one group or class of people that are seeking to enslave us, and they are the neoliberalistic capitalists. And that's not people that are making 100 grand a year or whatever. I'm talking about an elite, I hate even that term, but a very specific group of individuals that have accrued such wealth over generations around the world that they dictate everything. Yeah. So okay, let's leave this on some hope. So I think this is a reason why people need to go to Boroughfest to take a few days off this year because the world is shit, but it will get better.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, I've enjoyed this, Jim. Thank you for taking the time. I will include, like I said, links below, ticket links, etc., and ways for people to contact Borofest if they're interested in, well, anything, showcasing a craft, teaching a lesson, speaking, etc. So yeah, hopefully this will gain some extra traction. And like I said, if I don't see you before, I will definitely see you in a wonderful walled garden down in, where did you say it was?
Overston in Northamptonshire.
Overston. Don't think I've ever been there, so it'll be a new place for the eyes, as they say. So I'll be looking forward to it.
Nice one. Thank you.
No worries, brother. I'll let you sign off now, and I'll do some housekeeping. So yeah, take it easy. I'll be in touch, and yeah, all the best, man.
Thanks a lot. Ta-da.
All right, peace. Bye. Well, there you go, folks. That was James Rogers. Goes by Jim. I enjoyed that conversation. Yeah, I thought we covered some good ground. Nice to get the opinion of somebody kind of who experienced the prescribing system quite early on, and to why they are not sort of interested in continuing with it and what it would take to sort of get them back to it. I think his idea of sort of dispensaries in the UK, I'd be down for that. Definitely down for that. I think that would improve the status quo massively, as well as increase the normalization of cannabis to the masses, which again is all for the benefit of all the artificial sides of the cause, as it were, whether you are so-called medicinal or so-called adult use. Cannabis is cannabis. And anything we do to normalize it, I think, helps, as long as it doesn't demonize other sort of consumption or other communities or, subgroups within the culture. But yeah, also check out Boroughfest. I'll include some links below to their website, etc. They're doing some really exciting things this year. Looking forward to their announcements, which we will keep you up to date with here on the podcast. I'll no doubt catch you up when I see them as we go. Yeah, one of the things I wanted to talk about this year that didn't get an opportunity to with Jim there was Cannabis. I'll be out there next week. When's this going out? I think I'll be out there when this is released. So hello from Barcelona. I hope you're in Barcelona. If you are, come find me. I'll be around until the 14th. Yeah, looking forward to this year's event. A lot of my former guests will be there, so it'll be nice to bump into various people. There's some good events kicking off around Barcelona at the various cannabis social clubs. And obviously Cannabis itself is Europe's largest cannabis sort of celebration expo. So yeah, everybody that's anybody is sort of going to be around. So if you are, do enjoy. It's going to be a hell of a fucking weekend. Hit me up. We'll have a smoke. It'll be good. And yeah, if you enjoyed this episode, folks, please do give us a like, share, and a subscribe. We're getting ever closer to that. Ever closer. I actually was too close. I didn't release my fingers. We are getting ever closer to that 1,000 subscriber mark, and yeah, the ability to turn on monetization, which I can imagine will only trickle through. But quite happy for anything that can help keep the lights on this project. So with that in mind, if you really enjoyed this episode, you really enjoy what I do here, please do check us out on patreon.com/the Simpa Life, where you can help me keep on the lights on this little project of mine. Also, do check out the Simpa Life website, simpalife.com or .co.uk, whichever you prefer. They both go to the same place anyway, which is the new website that I've personally hand-built using Squarespace. Shout out Squarespace, making it beyond fucking easy compared to the WordPress and various other fucking systems I've tried to build websites on in the past. So yeah, I have a fully functional website. I say that. Go check it, find any bugs, do let me know. But yeah, I think it's functional and up and ready. I'll be relaunching blogs within the coming weeks as well. So the Last Week in Weed series will be restarting, as well as an exciting new series, which I think I briefly discussed in the podcast, called The Trip Report, which is exploring sort of psychedelic culture and the emerging industry. So yeah, folks, I've enjoyed this. Hope you've enjoyed this. We'll be back next week with, I don't know, somebody. It'll be good and you'll enjoy it. All right. Peace and love, folks. See you next week.